They say the deep ocean is the last true wilderness on Earth, a realm of crushing pressure and eternal night, more alien than the surface of the moon. Down in the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters below the sunlit world, humanity had planted a flag of defiance, the Hadalys VII research station. It was a marvel of engineering, a tiny bubble of light and life in a world of absolute black. For the three souls aboard, it was a laboratory, a home, and ultimately a tomb. What follows has been pieced together from fragmented data logs, distorted audio recordings, and the final, desperate transmissions that clawed their way to the surface. It is a cautionary tale, a warning that when you stare into the abyss does not just stare back. It speaks, and its voice is the sound of your own breaking mind. For the crew of Hadalys VII, the end began not with a catastrophic failure of equipment, but with a whisper from the void, a sound that should not have existed. The signal arrived on the 27th day of their 6-month rotation. It was nothing at first, a faint anomaly on the deep-range hydrophone array. Most would have dismissed it as a geological tremor or a phantom echo from the station's own machinery. But Dr. Aris Thorne was not most people. He was the station's lead oceanographer, a man whose mind operated on logic and data, yet whose heart was haunted by the poetry of the unknown. For 3 days he barely slept, his face illuminated by the green glow of the spectral analysis display. He lived on black coffee and a relentless obsession, convinced this was not random noise. Jonah Vance, the chief engineer, saw it differently. He was a man of steel and systems, of pressure gauges and power conduits. His reality was the groaning hull of the Hadalys VII and the delicate balance of life support that kept the crushing weight of the Pacific Ocean at bay. It's a feedback loop. "Aris," Jonah would say, his voice a gravelly anchor of pragmatism. "We're down here in a tin can, surrounded by 1,000 unique pressure and temperature gradients. The array is probably just picking up its own reflection, distorted." But Aris would just shake his head, his eyes fixed on the waveform. "Look at the pattern, Jonah. The periodicity is too structured. It's not an echo." It was Dr. Lena Petrova who gave Aris's obsession a terrifying legitimacy. As the team's xenolinguist and marine biologist, her expertise was in communication, from the complex clicks of sperm whales to the chemical signals of abyssal shrimp. She spent hours filtering the signal, stripping away the ambient noise of the trench. On the 4th day, she called Aris and Jonah to the comms station, her face pale. "It's not just a pattern," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. "It's syntax. There's a repeating structure, complex modulations. It's like a language. And the most impossible part, it's responding to us." She played back a recording. First, the rhythmic pulse of the station's sonar pinger. A moment of silence. Then, from the abyss came the signal, mirroring the sonar's rhythm but replying with a vastly more complex, layered sequence of its own. It was like a child mimicking a word before answering with a full, eloquent sentence. They were no longer just listening. They were in a conversation. The discovery should have been the greatest moment in human history. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. The signal began to change. It grew more intricate, weaving itself into the station's ambient frequencies. It was a constant subliminal presence, a low thrum that vibrated in their bones, a high-frequency whisper that danced at the edge of their hearing. And it began to work on their minds. Aris's obsession deepened into a dangerous fixation. He started speaking to the signal, whispering questions at the comms panel in the dead of night. He claimed it was showing him things, visions of primordial life forms, of geological epochs unfolding in moments. "It's showing me the birth of the world," he mumbled to Lena, his eyes wide and bloodshot. "It remembers everything." He abandoned his other duties, his log entries becoming fragmented, filled with frantic sketches of impossible creatures and complex equations that trailed off into nonsense. Jonah felt the station itself turning against him. He would hear the metallic screech of a buckling support beam where there was none. He would see critical pressure warnings flash on a monitor for a split second, only to vanish when he looked again. The abyss, his pragmatic mind concluded, was causing auditory and visual hallucinations, a known side effect of extreme pressure and isolation. He began running constant diagnostics, trusting only his tools. But the tools started to lie. A wrench would go missing from its designated spot, only to be found in the med bay. A vital coolant valve would be shut off, with no record of who did it. He started watching the others, his practical skepticism curdling into a dark, corrosive paranoia. He saw Eris not as a driven scientist, but as a madman. He saw Lena not as a brilliant linguist, but as a willing acolyte to Eris's insanity. Lena's experience was the most insidious. The signal, which she had once seen as a beautiful linguistic puzzle, now felt like a voice in her head. It didn't speak in words, but in pure emotion. It dredged up long-forgotten memories. The face of a childhood friend she had wronged, the scent of her grandfather's study, the profound grief from a loss she thought she had buried years ago. In the periphery of her vision, in the impenetrable darkness outside the viewport, she began to see fleeting shapes, not monstrous leviathans, but shimmering bioluminescent patterns that coalesced into familiar, sorrowful forms. The signal wasn't an alien intelligence trying to say hello. It was a mirror, reflecting the deepest, most fractured parts of their own psyches. It was taking the echoes of their past and giving them a voice. The breaking point came during a system-wide power recalibration. Jonah insisted on a temporary shutdown of all non-essential systems, including the primary hydrophone array. "We need to reset," he argued, his voice tight with desperation. "Get this noise out of our heads. We need silence." "No," Eris roared, lunging for the control panel. "You can't. I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. It's showing me the origin." The two men grappled, their conflict a microcosm of the war raging in all their minds, the desperate need for reason against the seductive pull of the unknown. Lena screamed for them to stop. And in that moment the signal peaked. It flooded every speaker in the station, a deafening cacophony of sound that was both beautiful and horrific. Jonah, in his terror, saw the main viewport begin to crack, a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the reinforced plexiglass, the ocean's immense pressure about to obliterate them all. He acted on instinct, grabbing a heavy fire extinguisher and swinging it at the main comms console, trying to smash the source of the noise. Lena saw the shimmering lights outside coalesce into the form of her long-dead brother, his hand pressed against the glass, his mouth open in a silent, pleading scream. She collapsed, sobbing, lost in a ghost that the abyss had resurrected for her. And Eris heard the final answer. He heard the universe whisper its greatest secret directly into his soul. His face was beatific, his eyes wide with terrible enlightenment. He stopped fighting Jonah, turned slowly towards the viewport and smiled. "I see," he whispered. "It's not out there. It was never out there." He then walked calmly towards the emergency airlock. Jonah's final log entry is a testament to his broken sanity. The audio is distorted, his voice a ragged, panicked whisper. He speaks of the viewport holding, of the silence after he destroyed the console. He describes locking a smiling, catatonic Aris in his quarters. He talks about Lena curled in a corner, humming a tune that perfectly matched the signal's last known frequency. His last words were not for mission control, but for whatever was listening in the dark. "The signal is gone," he stammered, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "But I can still hear it. It's coming from inside me, the echo. It's me." The log ends there. When the rescue submersible finally reached the Hadalys VII 6 weeks later, it found the station cold and silent. The airlock was cycled open. Dr. Eris Thorne was gone. Dr. Lena Petrova was found in the comms bay, dead from severe dehydration, with a serene smile on her face. And Jonah Vance, he was in the engineering bay, having methodically and calmly dismantled the station's life support system, piece by piece. There was no monster, no alien, no physical threat. The abyss had simply held up a mirror, and the echoes from within had torn them apart. It had shown them that the most terrifying darkness is not in the depths of the ocean, but in the depths of the human soul.